everybody, good evening. My name is Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. First of all, I'd like to, thank everyone out there who's been calling and emailing us and sending letters, just with their love and their inspiration. I also wanted to tell everybody that we just got on over the last couple of week period in Boulder, Colorado. We're on 3 times a week, and we're also on in Little Rock and Reno, and just that love and that inspiration that you share with us all the time is starting to really explode across the United States. And with your help, we're working on getting all the shows on the internet, so anyone in the world with a modem and internet access can watch any of the shows. This is our 77th show now, and we're just so excited to have all the new paradigms coming together and to have the new technology enable that inspiration, that love, to once again just reach all the corners of the world, even in Africa, where maybe it's not in every home, maybe it's in a library or a government building. Think of the opportunity for someone to watch a show with the guests we've had, or tonight's guest, Barbara Marx Hubbard is with us, and she's just a world-renowned futurist, a citizen diplomat, a visionary. She's been one of the seminal figures in bringing consciousness to everyone. Her books are just incredibly renowned all over the world. She's written Rings of Empowerment, The Revelation, The Evolutionary Journey, Happy Birthday, Planet Earth, and her new book, Conscious Evolution, is a book about the awakening power of our social potential, of how we can take that love, people who watch the show, people who are coming into that inspiration, how they can take that love and transform the manifestations, the external forms of this world into an experience of love, and to bring that connectedness to all our lives and have that spread to just the entire planet. And we've gotten some requests from you to play, as you well know, the opening and closing. The music on the opening and closing is by a good friend of Bridging Heaven Earth, Omashar, and he wrote for his next album, which isn't quite out yet, a whole song, Bridging Heaven and Earth, which he played on our show. So we're going to show that tape because a lot of people have requested it. It's the whole Bridging Heaven and Earth song. So as we normally do at this time, please join me in a short meditation to ground us, to settle us into that place of connectedness, of that place of love. And tonight with Barbara, we're going to just have an extraordinary show. So please join me. Thank you. And I also wanted to start tonight's show. This is a letter we got from, it's fairly self-explanatory once we get started, but it's a person who started watching Bridging Heaven and Earth in San Francisco. It was written February 9th, 1999. Dear Bridging Heaven and Earth, several months ago, I accidentally stumbled onto your show while remoting across my San Francisco cable box. The sight of an apparently blind, curly-haired guy speaking to a woman about dolphins. We know who he meant there. I guess he meant me. Let's be frank here. Was quite a contrast to neighboring channels like QVC, C-SPAN Spanish, or Chinese language soap operas and other usual schlock. After a few moments, I found myself unable to stop watching and have become a regular viewer, even taping shows I can't see when they are run. Your message of oneness is indeed uplifting. But I want to write to you about another perspective, perhaps a more complete one. It is wonderful to become excited about the emerging worldwide consensus toward unity, to one day of peace et al. But unless this possibility is sensed against who we really are as an evolving human species, damaging illusions and pretenses can prevail. As a human race, we are only 60 years removed from world war, state-administered mass murder, nuclear detonation against the civilian population, and 30 years removed from carpet bombing, napalm, the murder of beloved national leaders and artists like John Lennon, and only 10 years removed from the crumbling of spirit-numbing communism and state socialism. It is no wonder that against this backdrop, Bridging Heaven and Earth is having worldwide impact. I am asking that you balance your unbridled optimism about the future with true connections to a real feeling and understanding about our immediate past. I am asking that in your expressions of love for all things future, that you include true love for those dear souls who had to live through the difficult times of this century, who for the most part by their sacrifice laid the foundation for all the possibilities now before us. As an example, I ask you to consider a small 18th century fortress village in Czechoslovakia named Terezín. At this place, the Nazi regime collected artists, intellectuals, university professors, enlightened religious leaders, women's rights activists, scientists, and their children, gathered from Germany, Holland, France, and Denmark, all eventually en route to the east, to Dachau, to Auschwitz. Forced to endure incredibly bizarre circumstances, these innocent souls captured by a Europe gone mad left a legacy of oneness, a legacy of having that experience that can never be allowed to slip from our consciousness. Instead of becoming pitiful victims, these people faced up to their circumstances by becoming more cultured, more artistic, more refined, more devoted to glorifying the holy name. They instituted in the camp an ad hoc artistic mecca, conducting incredible operas and stage shows, lectures, research projects, public discourses on the history of human civilization, all after long hours of exhausting forced labors at the hands of the Nazis, all conducted in stifling summer heat or bitter winter cold. It seems they were determined to never let their Creator God see them in despair, to see them without joy and gratitude for the gift of life He had given to them. And in that end, we can be sure, as they walked their final steps, they did so in full knowledge that by the actions of their life, they had ensured the permanent end to movements like Nazism, that by sacrifices of their lives, an epoch of openness was indeed at hand. In Terezín, there were approximately 20,000 children. Very few were known to survive. Enormous attention and effort was invested into these children's education. They were to be the strength of the post-war, post-depravity era. If they were alive today, they would be approximately 70 years old. They would probably have participated in leadership roles in bringing the human race to the doorstep of one day in peace, to 1 year of peace, and so on. Shows like Bridging Heaven and Earth with worldwide access seem to be changing the future. What I am asking you to do is to change the results of the past simply by acknowledging once in a while those dear souls whose cumulative life's work created the possibilities before us. When the Terezín camp was liberated, many writings of those kept there were found, and in the 60s, an extraordinary American composer set some poems and writings of children to music. Enclosed are recordings. He sent me this tape, which was called I'll Never See Another Butterfly. Enclosed are recordings of some of these poems sung by the San Francisco Girls Chorus. Please listen to these songs. It may be possible, if you listen hard enough, for you to hear the voices of Terezín speaking directly to you across the abyss of time about the beauty of life, of love, and about the majesty of God. Please try to make this connection to those people and to many others like them, speaking to us from across the expanse of the 20th century, because I believe, as the ancient scripture writers recorded, that he who honors me, it is him who I will raise up in glory. The thing is, there have always been people devoted to the oneness. Linking to them once in a while, loving them, can only make your already powerful message truly universal. Sincerely, Mike Daly. So whatever we can experience, whatever we can do to end things like that, to end the separation, the things that lead to that, those kind of atrocities, that kind of hatred, it's time, and it's time we came together to do that. And we're honored tonight to have with us someone who's devoted her life. And as long as I've been involved in this movement, the New Age movement, the spiritual path, the name Barbara Marx Hubbard has been at the forefront. So welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, Alan. I'm very happy to be here.
So I've heard you defined as a futurist and a visionary and a citizen diplomat. What do those things mean to you, and how does that propel you in your work?
Well, I have a very
Or play, as it
simple definition of a futurist. It's an expanded parent. You know, the minute you get pregnant, you're a futurist. It's not even just 9 months, it's 9 years, 18 years. What we're seeing now is that we're having an effect on the future. We're having an effect through our environment, through how many babies we have, through what we eat, the cars we drive. And so to become a futurist is to take a parental love.
A concern for that which...
For that which is coming, and that you have a role to nurture it, to care for it, you have a responsibility for it. And it's a parenting at an expanded level. So that's a definition of a futurist. Now a vision...
So it's a parenting in the family of humans.
Of humanity.
Man is...
Caring, responsibility, and, you know, it's interesting because we're parenting and at the same time we're the children.
It's an interesting paradox here.
Because we are very young in what you're talking about, the oneness, the sense of connectedness. There have always been people who have that experience, but never has it been en masse. Now, my own view as a visionary is that more and more people are popping into an experience of connectedness and oneness because the pressure on the planet is connecting us. Electronically, environmentally, our defense systems are linked. So I think what you're talking about is emerging everywhere, but it hasn't yet become the dominant thought form. So as a visionary is someone who sees, and I have attempted to see what is breaking through out of what is breaking down.
And to help to break through.
And by seeing what's breaking through and connecting it and communicating it like you're doing on this show, once people see something's possible, then they go toward it. And because we have a mass media that tends to see what's breaking down or puts us to sleep, the average person has no idea of the emergent capacities of the human species. So my job as a visionary has been to notice, to see, to appreciate,
and to make available.
Make available, and then to begin to develop a vision out of all of this, which is magnetic and attractive. You know, they say where there is no vision, the people perish. Well, the opposite is true. Where there is vision, people flourish.
Yeah, the creativity is part of it.
So the ultimate work of a visionary seer is to see what's emerging, to see how it connects, to put it out forward so people can see it themselves and see that their potential is connected to that. I think of it as the future resides in our hearts. The future resides in our genius. But we need to know we're needed, and that's my work.
Wow. So, and all your books have been like leading up, and your new book is like a blueprint for coming into the new millennium where the explosion of consciousness seems to be happening. And that's the new book, Conscious Evolution.
It's called Conscious Evolution, Awakening the Power of Our Social Potential. And my theme is that the human potential movement, personal growth, inner values, has been growing for literally thousands of years, but most recently in the human potential movement, 30 to 40 years. That inner growth is now moving outward into an effort to create better education, environmental protection, women's, and if you could just scan for the amount of things coming from that inner value change into outer form, you'd see the emergence of the human social potential movement. And remember Maslow, Abraham Maslow, he noticed that higher quality of humans and he mapped it. And then we could see a picture of ourselves as individual humans. I'm saying if we can identify, map, and connect the altruism, the goodness, the creativity, and see a picture of society at its next level, we can move towards social transformation just as we have moved towards personal transformation.
And you give like a 5-step kind of analysis and program to make that real for people in this new book, Conscious Evolution.
I do. I see that, first of all, we need to know our new story. And that's the story of creation, from the Big Bang to the present and beyond, seen as a continuous process of creation, which is now becoming conscious in you and me. And my view of God is the divine designing intelligence that's run through the entire 15 billion years, awakening in us as our own creativity, and our own opportunity to create. Once we get awakened to that, we see that our own desire is part of the process of evolution. And I see in that if we continue with this, we can either destroy ourselves completely, or we can take a quantum jump to the next stage of evolution. Now, your show is called Bridging Heaven and Earth. That, in my language, is a quantum jump from the current state of breakdowns and chaos to the potentiality in the system, which I think is for heaven on earth. And I am a person stretched across that bridge from heaven to earth based on the emerging capacities of humanity. So the first thing is we've got to know our new story. Then secondly, I think we need to know that we are entering an absolutely new era of conscious evolution. Now, the evolution of consciousness has gone on for billions of years. You know, from the cell to the animal to the human to Christ and Buddha. But conscious evolution means we understand the atom, the gene, the brain. Human intelligence is penetrating matter. And this means we can have the power of gods. We are in a kindergarten of godlings. And that power can be misused. We understand the nature of atoms, we make a bomb. We understand our DNA, we could make monsters. But if we have a higher consciousness, it means we can restore the earth, we can free the people, we can explore the universe. I think we're being born as a universal humanity.
And would that take the experience of the connectedness of the love rather than the separation and division?
Exactly. I think the most fundamental shift that would be required is the shift in you and me and all of us from the illusion of separateness to the awareness of connectedness with each other, with nature, and with spirit. And I think that millions of us are making that shift, but it hasn't shown up institutionally. You don't see it in organized religions because they fight. You don't see it in nation states because they conflict. You don't see it in corporations because they compete. You see it in people everywhere. So part of...
Is it organizationally difficult? I mean, because even New Age organizations, I mean, we deal with a lot of them on the show, and you get, you know, ours is the best way, the right way, the only way sometimes.
It's true.
So what creates that in a person, and how are we going to get to a place where collaboration is the key rather than...
Well, this is another part of the plan.
Right.
We have to have processes that enhance social cooperation, social co-creation. And for example, right here in Santa Barbara, we're going to have a teaching in conscious evolution, and then we're going to say to people, what is your greatest passion to create right now? Where's the juice for you? What are your needs? What are your resources? And people are going to go into sectors like environment, health, government, and they are going to make joint statements to each other in an assembly of the whole. Our passion to create, our needs, our resources. And then we're going to have a facilitated mingle or vocational dating.
Wow.
Don't you like vocational dating?
Jesus. What a dating service. That's going to be environment, meet the environment.
And you know, let's say I have a passion, I want to do something in a school. Right. Well, I might need a school. And let's say there's a teacher there who needs me. And you start getting together, I call that supra-sex. Not super-sex, but vocational.
You're ready for this?
This is what's going to make it work.
Tantric into supric.
This is what's going to make it work. You see, we're not going to do this by guilt and fear alone.
I hope not.
Nature got us to populate the entire planet out of sexual attraction. I believe nature is going to get us to evolve the planet out of suprasexual attraction. And what that is as your creativity gets aroused and you desire to express yourself, you get turned on. And then you've got to reach out and find somebody else. And if you find someone else who gets turned on with you, you get even more excited and you want to express. So we are developing a process, I call it SynCon, for synergistic convergence. People share their projects, their initiatives, their interests, they help each other, and they create, instead of a parliament where you have win-lose, you have an assembly of the whole where you have win-win. Now, I don't want to say that that alone will do it, but what I've learned, this is from Ruth Benedict, the anthropologist.
You're getting me so excited, I want to interrupt you. No, I'm kidding. We're talking about
sexual co-creation. But here, just this little insight. Ruth Benedict studied tribes. Some were hostile, some were peaceful. And she wondered, why are some tribes one way and the others so angry? And she found it was one trait. The peaceful tribes had a social structure that was high synergy, or win-win. So if a man got the biggest hunt, he gave the biggest party. A hostile tribe had a low synergy, win-lose social structure. If a man got
what caused that? I mean,
if a man got the biggest hunt, he took everybody's wife.
Now
So
there's a
hostile tribe.
Right. No, but why?
Why does one tribe? Yeah. That's a very good question.
That's what I'm here for.
That's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Because, I mean, to me, that would be the interesting part. I mean, you know, it's like, do you change it from the inside, or do you change it from the outside?
Well, I can tell you how we're doing it.
Okay.
There are many.
As long as you change it, I guess that's...
We are among a very large group of people saying, let's change the social structures that enhance human creativity, cooperation, and compassion, instead of competition. Now, so a synergistic process, like we're going to do here in Santa Barbara, would be to see how a whole community, if it were brought together in a assembly of the whole, where each group and each person could say what his or her passion is, and be facilitated in matching needs and resources, to have a win-win-win. It's win for the participants and win for the whole. And you know, Bucky Fuller told us that synergy is the way nature evolved. Different parts come together, form a whole. If we can socially develop structures whereby we come together individually and form a whole in which each of us gets to do more of what we want to do, the energy that's released helps the system go quantum, and we jump from earth toward heaven. Heaven is the awareness of connectedness.
Right. Actually, it's only the illusion that we're disconnected that creates any problems.
That's correct.
You know, I mean, it looks like we're disconnected, but the truth is, and the reality is that there can be nothing outside of that energy.
You know, one of my favorite biblical quotes is from St. Paul. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep. We shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. Now, the reason it could be so fast is that it's an illusion in the first place.
Yeah, it's like popping a balloon. How long does it take?
Now, it takes a while for a tree to grow or a baby to grow, but to get rid of an illusion is sudden. And what is it that causes one to get rid of an illusion? Sometimes it's a peak experience. It's a flash of unity, or it's a meeting of others with whom you resonate. And what's so important about your show is if somebody's sitting out there watching this and they have this seed of oneness in their hearts, they get reinforced by this, and then they reinforce somebody else.
Right. Yeah, it's dominoes all over. I mean, every time you speak, we never know who's going to be affected.
And of course,
in what way?
You know, Teilhard de Chardin gave the law of complexity consciousness. As a system gets more complex, it jumps in consciousness, as from single cell to multi-cell, from like a single cell to an animal to a human. Well, our planet is getting more complex. Everything is interconnecting. So the thought here is we're all members of this body. We are being interconnected by the larger system. So the reason more and more of us are having higher consciousness is we're part of a greater complex system.
Well, all the things that, a lot of the things that separate us, like states. I mean, the internet, there's no state, there's no anything. I mean, the technology, in a way, is breaking down the barriers between, a lot of things that have prevented us from feeling connected, knowing connected.
Exactly. We're omnipresent,
right,
and we're bordering on a certain form of omniscience. We realize also that the universe is all connected. It's an organic whole system, and every one of us is a living part of that organic
Do you
whole.
think that sometimes it has, at some point in a human being, it has to drop from the thought to the experience or the realization? Or...
Not only sometime, it must.
Well, I was hoping you'd say that.
It must. In fact, I think that we have to incorporate at the cellular level the experience of who we really are. And who really are we? We are expressions of the divine. We all have local selves, and those local selves get driven and addicted, but I am not that. Mm-hmm. I am that beloved self. You are that beloved self. And I think we're shifting our identity from the separated self to the unified self. Now, the experience of being unified internally, so that your local self and your higher self join, you know what it's bliss.
It feels like love in a human body.
Absolutely. And when you experience an internal bliss, your work is an expression of that bliss.
It becomes play. I always write play/work.
And the word creator, creator as one of the words for God, I think our creativity is the creator within. Mm-hmm. And I believe as women particularly live longer lives and have fewer children, that genius and that creativity is being pressed forward, and it's coming out as the desire for life purpose, for vocation, for responding to the inner calling. And in that creativity is the love, the same love we have for the child in our procreativity.
Yeah, it's the manifestation of that interconnectedness. We're in physical bodies, we are going to manifest, and if we have the experience of love and oneness, we're going to act as love and one.
And we're shifting from maximum procreation to co-creation, from self-reproduction, just having more and more babies, to self-evolution. And the big shift is happening in the women as they wake up to the fact that their own internal creativity can be expressed out there, and they want to do it. Mm-hmm. And when you do it, you give birth to yourself.
Now, you travel all over the world, and we've had other people whose life's work is similar to yours, like Lama Oli travels the world setting up Buddhist centers, and his feeling is that what we're talking about now is really true in the Western cultures, but in what do they call it? In different other parts of the world, the procreation rate is still astronomical.
I know. You see, wherever there is development, and wherever there's choice, there are fewer children. And the tragedy is that in many parts of the world that's not yet so. So people are
he thinks that's and the
that's
whole
a disaster.
Thing with the Pope and
it's a disaster.
The whole birth control issue.
Yeah.
And we got into that a little bit because he felt like it was depriving the universe, the Earth, of that experience.
Exactly, and as you know, we have over 5.5 billion. One more doubling is over 10 billion. So one way or the other, we will have fewer children. And out of that, instead of saying it's a population crisis, it's a tremendous opportunity for the release of the procreative energy into the co-creative, and for the movement of the sexual energy into a suprasexual desire to express, to create, and to join your genius.
And so, and you find that that's really part of an expanding consciousness, that people are really coming to those ideas of yours and just really responding to them.
They're responding to them, and I'm discovering them through what people are doing. You see, and also myself, like I had 5 children. I was a frustrated housewife in Lakeville, Connecticut, when I realized that I had something more to give, and I got turned on by a vocation. And my vocation is to be a communicator, to tell the story of.
Was that your story before that? I mean, was that your history?
Yes.
You were a communicator before, but then
no, I was not. No.
Not just, but you were.
I was a mother. I got married in 1951. 1951.
And you were minus 4 years old. Now, there's a young bride. She knows from young bride.
I was 21 when I got married in 1951. I got pregnant, and it was the time when, even though I went to Bryn Mawr, I had a degree in political science.
I used to date girls from Bryn Mawr.
I wanted to go to Washington and get a job, but I got married. I got pregnant, and I immediately shifted from the desire for self-expression to the desire to have the baby.
Right.
And then
even before you had the baby. I mean,
while I was pregnant.
While you were pregnant.
But after the baby was born, then this nagging feeling would come in. Why am I on this earth? What is my purpose?
And it happened 4 more times.
Then, because I didn't know the answer, I got pregnant again. The only thing I knew what to do.
I see.
Margaret Mead called our generation mindless fecundity. We kept having babies because we didn't know what to do. Then Betty Friedan wrote Feminine Mystique in the 60s, and she went to interview women, and they had this problem was that they had they wanted to have an identity beyond wife and mother. They must be sick.
Right.
That's only 30 years ago.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's what, this whole letter, I mean, we're not far removed from these.
And suddenly I realized that my problem was not that I was neurotic, but that I hadn't found my life purpose, and it wasn't having babiys.
Right. Even though having babies is
fine. It was wonderful,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
I have 5 wonderful children. But when I found that I personally had a gift to give,
exactly.
and I decided to go do it, I transformed from a frustrated housewife to a cosmic futurist.
Wow.
In a couple of months.
That's fantastic. That is really fantastic. So I think, now that this transformation happened, we'll come back in a little while, but I know a lot of people wanted to see the Omashar doing the Bridging Heaven and Earth, the whole song, and this is Omashar doing it. So are we ready in the booth? Okay, let her rip whenever you're ready. This is Omashar doing, it's going to be on his next album. I don't know if it's out yet. Bridging Heaven and Earth.
Thank you very much, everybody. And Bridging Heaven and Earth is the next song, and good night.
As finally we know, no thought about a future. This moment is all we have to know. We walk the path together. Hand in hand we grow. As we walk on earth, we're
Hi, well, so however many people request that there was Omashar doing Bridging Heaven and Earth. As soon as we find out when his new album comes out, we'll let you know, and that's going to be on it. So we're back with Barbara. So Barbara, so you came to this awakening, and then how did your life shift? How did that happen to you individually, and then how did you move from a personal point of view into the social point of view?
Well, the Betty Friedan book, where I realized that I was a woman that had an identity and it was okay. Beyond being a mother and mother. Right? And it's really hard to imagine how that is now.
Right.
And then I read Abraham Maslow, Toward a Psychology of Being, and he said every self-actualizing person, that is every joyful, productive, creative person, without exception, has vocation. A calling, a soul's code. And then I realized I hadn't found my calling. And then I began to search, what is it in me that is driving me, that makes me depressed? Now it's interesting, if anybody out there is depressed, which is a lot of us.
Probably a couple out there, but most people who watch Bridging Heaven and Earth are blissed out. But there might be a few who just tuned in by mistake.
That depression is a positive signal of growth. It's telling you can't just stay static.
You have to move on. Something has to
move
change.
on. And I found that very deep depression, I went deeper and I heard an inner voice. And the inner voice...
Did you do any spiritual practice like meditation or...
At that time, I knew nothing. But the way...
Just the hunger was so great.
The hunger, my autobiography is called The Hunger of Eve. It's the hunger for that deeper union. And then when I read Maslow, I said, okay, I don't yet have my vocation. So what I did is I began to read and reach out, almost like a starving person, because I knew there was something that would spark it. And then I found this author and that author and Bucky Fuller and Teilhard de Chardin, and they turned me on. And then I'll never forget it. I had one incident that this is typical of how it works. I had not met anybody who had the same passion that I do for the evolution of our species, for the future of humanity. And I wrote a letter to Jonas Salk. I didn't even know him, but what I thought he was doing. And to make a very long story short, he called me up and he said, Barbara, you have stated my dream. Could I take you out to lunch?
Wow.
And when he came to take me out to lunch, I started to tell him all the things that were wrong with me, my attraction for the future, my desire to connect. He said, that's not what's wrong about you. That's what's right about you.
Exactly.
He said, you're a mutant.
Right. I understand.
You combine the qualities needed by evolution now, and I will introduce you to some others.
Wow.
So he introduced me to Louis Kahn, who was building the Salk Institute, introduced me to Al Rosenfeld, who was science editor of Life magazine, and they all had this mysterious sense of the future.
Wow.
Teilhard de Chardin talked about it. He said he could be in a room, and if there was one other person in whom the flame of expectancy burned, he would be attracted. I realized it's a type. It's a type that has this desire and passion.
It's a vibration.
It's a vibration.
Yeah, absolutely.
And after the meeting with Jonas, Maslow pointed out, if you can meet even one person that you wish to emulate, to be like, who recognizes you and sees you for your essence, it helps you to come into your essence. Now it's much easier because there are networks and trainings and books and stuff. And the other thing that helps you is a peak experience. A peak experience, you suddenly get expanded. In my case, I was taking a walk one day. I asked the universe a question, what's our story? What's happening on Earth? And I had an out-of-Earth experience. My mind's eye went into outer space. I felt us as a living body. All of us are members of the body. I felt us struggling to breathe through pollution. I felt the pain through the mass media.
Wow.
I felt the intensity of the pain of the whole system, like he's talking about, all of the pain. And then I saw light. And I think I had a flash of a precognitive experience. It's been called Omega, the birth experience, the planetary awakening. I think many millions of us have had precognitive flashes. Now, when I got that flash, I felt the entire planet connect. I felt the love come out of our hearts. I felt the lights go on outside of us in the universe and coming closer to us. I went back and I tumbled through the evolutionary spiral of universe, earth, life, and I came up to the present. And I heard the words, our story is a birth. We are one living body. And in our generation, we're being born. Our pollution, our population, our connection, our having to shift our resources from non-renewable to renewable, it's a planetary birth. What Jesus and Buddha and all came to tell us, that we are one, is now operationally true. Barbara, go tell the story.
Wow.
That was
quite a walk.
February 1966.
Wow, and you've been talking ever since.
And you know what?
With just 3 breaths.
It's absolutely true, Alan. I ran home.
I can believe it.
It was on a very cold day, and the tears froze to my cheeks.
Wow.
And I had gotten what I call a kinesthetic imprint of being a member of a planetary body which itself is integrating into one, and which as a whole system is shifting. Then I started to read Buckminster Fuller. And of course, he's talking about the design science revolution, and that we are all part of a living system, that our minds are designed to know the design. And I saw, if we could find out all the emerging qualities and capacities in science, in health, in education that are now working, and if we were to connect those, we would see the design of the emerging culture. And I got turned on that I'm here to tell the story of the birth, and I'm here to discover what's working and help connect it. Then, in 1984, I ran for vice president, and I proposed there be a peace room.
Who did you run with, John Glenn?
I asked to be selected as a vice presidential nominee.
Oh, that's right.
Democratic ticket.
Right, okay, right.
And my proposal was that there be a peace room as sophisticated as a war room. And the peace room scans for innovations that works, maps them, what works in health, what works in education, what works in economics, that leads to sustainability, love, and creativity. Then if you map them, you connect them, and you communicate them. And I recommended that there be a peace room in the office of the vice president and in every other part of the world, and 200 delegates signed a petition to place my name in nomination for VP of the U.S. Based on that proposal. So I got to make the speech at the convention.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And I declared there will be a peace room. Now what's happening here in Santa Barbara is a group of people have joined together to bring the peace room into manifestation. It's a site on the web, but more than that, it's a place in everybody's home. In your living room turns into a living room, capital L, capital R, because if you're connected through the web with innovations that work, and you're sitting in your home and you want to do something in education or health, you check in, you see what's already working, you find your teammates, it's super sex. You get more vocational interaction, you get vocationally aroused, and so I have a purpose.
I know, everybody out there, I'm afraid what the audience is doing.
Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard. You know that story, Mother Hubbard?
Right.
Well, I went to the cupboard and found it's full.
Right, instead of being right.
Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard, found it's full, so we're going to build a peace room to show how full it is.
You know, it's interesting, I asked you this before, but we've just come in contact, and she wants to come on the next season. This is the next to last show of our 6th season, but in the 7th season, Dr. Heather Harder, who's just through tremendous stories, is running for president of the United States. And you and she have to meet. I mean,
all right.
Next time she's here, we'll make sure that you're here too. And
thank you.
I mean, she's just been practicing being president for a long time, and a lot of the ideas are a peace room and teepees and just that conscious of love and collaboration.
You see, my idea for a presidential campaign is that
I can't believe you guys haven't spoken.
You form a team of people who know the breakthroughs in every field.
She's doing that.
And they're
absolutely.
like a cabinet for you.
She's doing it. I can't believe you and she haven't spoken.
Then you
have to. That's the one thing I have to do.
Well, good.
Is put you two together.
Then you connect up with innovations in every field, and then you make an announcement for president saying, if we get nominated, we, the whole team, is going to go around this country, and in every region, we're going to invite you into a communication in the whole to find out what's working, what you want to create, and we're going to facilitate the people to express their own creativity based on the genius and the altruism and the goodness that's already there. And it will be picked up on local media, and I think it will be an uprising of social wellness. And
from the grassroots
level,
because the institutions have an interest in maintaining the status quo.
And I think that the current political representative democracy has come to a limit, because we're not represented. There's gridlock up there. We have two parties that have to falsely fight. They have to make themselves different. The Republicans have to figure out what they do is different than the Democrats. And actually, it's not credible.
Doesn't seem to be.
Nor is it
anymore.
practical.
No, it seems to be a lot of waste
So
of time and money, as far as I can
if
see.
I had another lifetime, I would run for president of the United States and create that campaign. But because I don't have another life and I don't want to
maybe
do that,
Heather's your
want
soulmate in that
to
regard.
demonstrate the peace room, and I want to demonstrate and in a very live way that people in Santa Barbara and other communities, wherever they choose to do this, have within them that seed of greatness. And by being facilitated in finding what they want to do and connecting up with others and being communicated via local media, I hope you will come to the event, Alan, and that you will, participate as a media person. We definitely want you to be there. But we feel that by putting a peace room in Santa Barbara and elsewhere.
So your hope is to start off like on a small scale in a smaller place like Santa Barbara, and then just expand it and evolve it into something that could be in New York or Washington or Philly or LA or...
You have to have it somewhere where the people can get involved and really demonstrate how it works. And I asked the question, what would happen if the community in Santa Barbara were to experience its own potential for conscious evolution? And I was speaking in October, and 185 people signed up to find out.
Wow.
So a seed group formed here to create an event, and the event will invite a small, 150 people to come together to see what this larger community would like to do. And we'd like to do a prototype of a community practicing co-creation and synergy.
And Santa Barbara just seems like... Why did you pick Santa Barbara? Is there any particular reason?
Santa Barbara picked me.
And how did that work? No, I know it's true, but how did that work?
I've never had this experience before. When I made that speech, I just thought,
I see what you're saying. All of a sudden,
would anybody like to do this?
Right.
And then somebody from Santa Barbara, Ron Anastasia, said, how could I help? And I said, I really don't know. So he called together a group. And this group became what we're calling a core or seed group to organize this event. And then this group said to me, well, the event is to launch the Peace Room. The event is not about having a 2-day event. It's to launch SynCon and the Peace Room. And I suddenly...
SynCon being?
SynCon is the bringing people together as a whole, where everybody states their passion to create, their needs, their resources, and they do the vocational dating.
Right.
So we, with the encouragement of the community of Santa Barbara, are going to do an experiment. Santa Barbara is highly creative, has so many projects already, has so much richness and beauty. It's also happening in Sarasota. And we believe after doing it, we're going to have sister cities, Santa Barbara and Sarasota, but we hope that it
Sarasota, Florida,
yes,
right? On both coasts.
Both coasts, and that it will happen in any community. I know this show is going to be spread to Boulder and Santa Fe, wherever. It could happen in any community, and we would like to encourage and facilitate conscious evolution at the community level.
So, I mean, is your plan to like have, I mean, I know your book does that, but like to have, workbooks and workshops so that the process that you've and the people here have struggled to do in a clear and precise way. Everybody else doesn't have to. They
don't have to go through it.
Right.
What I realized, Alan, is that conscious evolution is a worldview and a new teaching. And I'm basically a teacher. I'm not a politician, and I'm not, a webmaster, but I do have some ideas which I think, if enacted socially on a small enough scale to see how they affect people, could then spread very rapidly.
So, and one of the last tenet in the book Conscious Evolution is the invitation, in a sense, for everybody to participate. That it's your world, it's your experience, it's your evolution.
That's correct.
Let's go.
That's right. And what we need are social processes that facilitate that participation, over and beyond people finding their inner calling. Finding their teammates in their projects is seeing how those projects connect up with other people's projects within a community. Now, because we're connected via the World Wide Web, any community is itself global.
Absolutely.
Do you see?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you do something someplace, then you're doing something in that sense that's available for everyone.
Right.
But I want to be in Santa Barbara. I want to be with the people. I also want to do this in Sarasota. But we see Santa Barbara as a kind of home base for a movement for conscious evolution worldwide.
So from here, then hopefully it will spread from city to city,
Yes.
country to country,
That's,
and then
that's what we hope. And we believe that conscious evolution is the most inclusive, because what it says is that the growing edge of you personally, anything in you that's your impulse to grow, and the growing edge of any creative expression in any field or function is part of the emerging species of humanity.
and it's not limited by race, color, religion, country.
No limits.
Nothing. There's no limit.
No.
It's just creativity.
It's creativity. Creativity has no label.
Right. Exactly.
And so what we're doing,
There's no opposite to it. There's no.
That's a good point, Alan. There's no opposite to creativity. And so this is a nurturing and a loving of our own creativity and the connecting with others doing the same.
Wow. That sounds fantastic.
It is fantastic.
Yeah, it sounds really
Yeah, it's
great.
great.
So, and the response has just been enormous.
The response, particularly with this new question, what would happen if the community of Santa Barbara were to experience its own potential? I asked the same question in Sarasota. And I had an audience of 500 people there, and 100 people signed up to help create the event.
Really?
Here, 185 people signed up. I have not experienced that before so much. They didn't just...
Even though you've traveled the world and
Right.
talked hundreds of times, but this idea seems
When
like
I
this
said
time has come.
it's a new teaching, it's a new worldview, and what would happen if a community got hold of its own potential? And that includes the new story of creation, the idea of the emerging person as co-creator, a new image of self as co-creator with the divine.
Right.
And the third part is
Interestingly enough, are we ever different than the divine except by illusion?
by the illusion, but you know, when you get rid of that illusion, it's explosive.
Seriously.
Yes. And then the processes for social co-creation. So what we will be doing here is we'll tell the big story, and then we'll tell the personal story, and people will chart their own path of development as, we're calling it a universal co-creative human, an emerging species.
And how are you going to avoid the problems with organizations and things like that? Because a lot of things started with beautiful ideas and beautiful experiences, and then and then the rock solid of organization sets in. And
We know that problem, and we want to experiment with the idea of what they call chaotic structures. They be more natural, more self-organizing, and I don't want to be overly proud about this. We have to see.
Right.
But we'll see with other people.
Absolutely.
We have to let it evolve.
Right, that's fantastic. All right, so I guess we're coming to the end of the show again, and this has been, I hope you had the same experience I had, and I just wanted to, thank you again for watching, and certainly want to thank, Barbara for coming and giving us the opportunity to share again her vision of the world, because this truly is a visionary, and Bridging Heaven and Earth is so honored to have her here with us. And
thank you, Alan. It was a wonderful interview, and I really appreciate your work.
yeah, thank you. So now we're doing a mutual adoration.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you for thanking
Why
me.
not?
Now you got to write a letter for thanking me.
Oh, I'll
She
write a
writes
letter. I'm going to write a letter.
So we can read it next week.
Then you read it next week, exactly.
All right, so we got a lot of stuff coming. We have one show left of this season, then we have we're having 13 new shows. We're gonna have Dr. Heather Harder on. We gotta connect her over with Barbara.
Yes.
I mean, I can't believe you guys haven't crossed paths yet. That's amazing. So please watch. Let that love bubble up from within. Good night. God bless you. Thank you for watching. Good night.